All right. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the Community Development and Transportation Committee meeting for March 26, 2024. I'm Randy Knighton, the City Administrator. The elected officials present, Mayor Kurt Wilson, Councilmember Christine Hall, Councilmember Alan Sells, Councilmember David Johnson, Councilmember Sarah Beeson, Councilmember G. Lee Hills, Councilmember William Morthland, along with the City Attorney David Davidson and Executive Assistant to the Council, Michelle Miller. It's a great day in Roswell and much to celebrate. The purpose of committee meetings is for the city departments to convey information to the mayor and city council and discuss initiatives listed on the published agenda by ordinance. The committee consists of the mayor and council and city administrator serves as chair of committee meetings. This is a public meeting, but not a public hearing. Therefore, while the public is certainly welcome to attend, questions or comments are generally not taken unless specifically authorized by mayor and council. Public comments or questions are received at the regular city council meetings held at 7:00 p.m. in the city council chambers on the second and fourth Mondays of each month, as well as the fifth Monday in open forum. We do encourage our residents to access our online platforms, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And we also encourage the utilization of the City of Roswell app or web service portal to register any concerns. We also encourage everyone to review a calendar of events at roswell365.com. The first item on the agenda is for the approval of the minutes of the Community Development and Transportation Committee meeting of February 27, 2024. We'll entertain a motion. Motion by Councilmember Hills, second by Councilmember Beeson. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We will note for the record, under Community Development, we show no action items. Under Transportation, item number 2, as listed on the agenda, consideration to accept a permanent easement needed to install a strain pole at Fraser Street and Norcross Street. Mr. Littlefield and Mr. Cox.
Thank you. Yeah, the intersection of Fraser Street and Norcross, right out here near the library, close to City Hall, requires a new strain pole. We've already replaced one, but the newer poles are bigger in diameter, so they take up a little more space, and we're requesting that we receive a donated piece of easement or a permanent easement. The easement size is 9.9 square feet. It's not very large. There is no financial impact to the city. Property owners agreed to donate it, and as soon as we get this, we'll be able to erect the new strain pole. The pole that we have is actually bent. If you drive through there, you can see that it's not upright and not in the best of conditions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Littlefield. Any questions, comments from council? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion. Motion by Councilmember Johnson, second by Councilmember Beeson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Item number 3, consideration to update the City of Roswell's public to private streets policy. Mr. Littlefield.
Thank you. It was brought to our attention that we had a means described, laid out, that how you would go from private to public, but we don't have anything for the reverse of that. So we don't have anything that states how somebody would approach the city in regards to going from a public street to a private street. So in your packet, we've added the requirements needed to actually solicit the city to go from a public street to a private street. Basically, the homeowners would have to have 100% consent. They would need to send us a letter of interest. Then we would provide them with all the information they need. We want the citizens to be aware of how much it costs to maintain roads, so we would do an assessment. And we would make sure that they had all the easements needed. So if there was stormwater utility easements needed, we would make sure that those were met. The city would have easements if needed. They would also have to let us know if they intend on having a gate, and then they would have to follow all the gated streets policies, all the private street policies, as far as having Knox boxes on for the fire department, things like that. And then we would also determine if there was a public need for this street. So it couldn't be a street that actually connected two of our streets together. It would have to be a cul-de-sac situation or an entire HOA neighborhood that wanted to go private. So in that way, they would have to have all of their streets private. And that's really it. Once they go through the entire process, there's a form in here that they would fill out, just showing printed names, signatures, the indication of yes or no, desiring the private to public, or public to private, sorry, and their property address, and then we would verify just to make sure that all the people actually did, that were included in the neighborhood actually signed this petition. There's also a few other changes that we updated, and that's just, if you look under type of local streets, under streets, the minimum right-of-way 47 to 55 feet. They're all highlighted in red in your packet, and that's just to meet the current UDC, because this was actually a 2014 document. And so to meet the current UDC standards, we just updated it to state what's in the UDC. So residential yield, minimum right-of-way 47 to 55 feet, residential 60 feet to 71 feet. Local streets in historic districts, 43 feet to 49 feet. And then under paving and curbs, in red is the changes from the UDC, just to reflect the current UDC. Are there any questions?
All right, thank you, Mr. Littlefield.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I threw a lot of numbers.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. Just a clarifying question for me on the update from private to public.
Yes.
So a letter of interest shall be submitted to the transportation director from the authorized HOA representative or group of citizens. I'm a little unclear of a group of citizens, what that would, and
If they didn't have a designated HOA, but they lived on a, say, a cul-de-sac street or any street, if they wanted to ask us to take it over, it doesn't mean that we would actually turn it over, but we would look at, to make sure they met the criteria, but they might not have a designated HOA to deal with.
so would they have to, what if they were renters and tenants that lived
They
there?
have to deal with the owner.
So it would have to be the owners,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
An actual property owner is the person that would sign the
Say that,
letter.
say that.
Councilmember Sells?
And we can add that verbiage in there.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Hall, did you receive?
I did, we're just adding that, some clarity that they'd have to be the property
Okay,
owners.
all right.
Yes. That's what it would be. We'll add it to make it clear to everyone.
Okay, Councilmember Sells?
Mr. Littlefield, is the city taking any active role?
All right. Rough crowd, man. Does the city take any active role on the, like over time, the maintenance and things like that? Do we make sure that it's executed up to a certain standard or anything of that sort after it goes private?
We would let them know in our assessment what the condition of the road is. That would probably be a call case-by-case basis, but we would definitely let them know the condition of the road. We would look at the pipes, we would work with EPW to look at the underground drainage.
So let's say 10 years from now when they repave it, does the city take any note of that or have any role in that, or is it?
We would not, once they turn private, it would no
All bets are
longer
off.
be city maintained.
Gotcha, thank you.
Mayor Wilson?
Sorry, just to follow up to Alan's question. So is there a remedy for that? Because obviously, even if they've made it a private road, the city's not interested in having a road, even though it's private, being in disrepair and unable to be fixed, solved for. In other words, even though it's private, right, it's still within, right, we still have a responsibility, even though we've passed over the
Standard maybe.
standard.
And that's why we provide that assessment, to let the homeowners know what that will entail. So, okay, the pavement's got roughly 5-10 years, whatever we think it is based on the volume of traffic, and here's how much it will cost, current numbers, to bring it up to, you know.
What if they,
And then fare thee well.
yeah, so say, and they say, okay, thank you for letting us know. Que sera, sera. We'll do.
Now
what
it's
we
a
want.
dirt, and now it's a dirt path, you know,
That's right.
20 years later. What do we do?
I don't know that there's a means, I mean, we could resurface it as a city or not turn it over until it was completely resurfaced, but then that still doesn't
Well, we don't
stop
want-
20 years from
Is it
now.
We don't want to
Covered by
be,
code?
we don't want to be in the game, because the whole reason,
Councilmember Beeson.
We as a city have to maintain, it would remind me of the acronyms, CPI rating? PCI.
PCI rating.
Scratch that, reverse it. PCI ratings. We as a city maintain the PCI ratings. So is there a reason why we cannot mandate a minimum PCI rating that the private owner would have to maintain?
You can, my question though is, to your point, you can say, hey, the standard is you can no lower than a 60 PCI rating.
Right.
Once you get below 60, you've got to remedy it.
You're obligated
Right,
to
you're obligated
repay
to
them.
remedy.
Assessment or whatever.
Exactly. But let's say they don't. They say, hey, Sarah, it's a private road. Remember, we took this back. You can't force us to do anything. That's
Well-
my question, is how do you remedy that?
The follow-up question on that, despite the fact that I did not support the measure, 6-ish months ago, we had that infrastructure that the city fixes on your behalf and then bills you for it.
Right.
Why can't we just apply the same
I think that's what we're saying.
legislation to that, where it's, okay, well, you didn't mean, now it's at a 20.
I think that was an individual. I don't think it was a group. I don't think that was I may be wrong, but I don't remember that being communal, COMMUNAL, forgive me for the lack of enunciation. Whereas this is a communal issue, like, so let's say there's 27 homes, 28 homes, I can think of a street right now. And they say, I want it back, right? So we say, okay, here's the process, which you can take it back. But guess what? We still have an interest of you maintaining a certain standard in the city. So you can't go below, once you go below 60 PCI and the city advises you, you've got to remedy that, even though it's a private road. And I think that's my question is, so now it's communal, so the communal is paying for it, right? I believe that issue was, hey, your individual issue, and we're going to bill you for that.
Because it was a business, right? But in this situation, if you're going from public to private, theoretically, you'd have to have some sort of communal entity that agrees that we are collectively going to contribute to the maintenance of the infrastructure.
Indeed, but there's no enforcement mechanism.
Well, that's what I'm asking. The enforcement mechanism we theoretically could have passed last year, if that's applicable. I'll leave it at that. I do have 3 follow-up questions when
I just
y'all are
think
done with that.
to the questions, the line of questioning is.
Sorry I didn't bring it up last year.
Yeah. We need to remedy, there needs to be a remedy. Just say this, sounds like a good idea, but what I hear is there needs to be some kind of remedy once a standard is not met.
Right, and we can work on that and bring it to the next committee.
How about that?
A step-in clause with
Because we don't, here's the trick. If I were like, you know what the more common thing is, we have a private road, would you please take it over? And we say, well, sure, we'll take it over, but you got to get it up to speed.
Right.
So think about this tactic could be used in reverse. I let my road go in risk repair, and the city says, hey, you got to get it up here. They said, hey, no problem, take it back over. Look, no, that's not the plan. So we got to have some wisdom to the strategy, because otherwise it could work against us.
And if they wanted us to take it over, they would have to bring it up to our standards and follow this,
so that's baked in.
the going from reverse, so.
Such a rule.
Councilmember Beeson.
He's a real follower.
Follow-up question to that. With the understanding that theoretically you would have a collective group of homeowners, HOA, and citizens, however it's phrased, that would be requesting the privatization for this. I remember last year when we did the opposite, where the city took back a street that was previously privatized. In terms of their good graces, the neighborhood not only got it up to a good level, I believe they also had an escrow. Is there any escrow requirements in the private to public to private, in the, public to private conversion, is there an escrow requirement that in the event something catastrophic happens to their roadway, they have X dollar amount in escrow that they could fix it or have to maintain that escrow amount?
No, but we can add it when we bring it back.
Because I feel like the city should be providing at least an appraisal of this is how much theoretically we would be spending to maintain your publicly held infrastructure on an X number of years basis. And therefore, you should have to hold X number of dollars in escrow so we don't have to bail you out in the event it goes downhill quickly.
Mayor Wilson.
No question. Jeff, Dave, how much time we spent on this? 10 minutes? I know, we need to have long. So is there a genesis event of why we're talking about this?
There is no one in the queue. Someone just brought it to our attention that we did not have a means that showed how to, there's mention of.
Is this
going
someone who's
from-
like an agent of chaos who just wants to take our time away?
No, I
It's a
don't
private
think that.
street.
There's mention of going from public to private, but there was nothing described in how to do it, so
Is there, I mean, there's actually somebody considering this?
there's no one that I'm aware of.
Steeplechase, Horseshoe Bend did consider this, and
They did.
the 100% threshold was not able to be met.
We don't have anybody waiting, knocking on our door to go to a private situation. It was brought to our attention there wasn't a means to go that way described. And so we just brought it here because if it does happen, we don't want to have to rush around and try to come up with a policy. So it's not bad if we have to come back and answer a few of these questions.
Sounds like you're going back to the drawing board a little bit.
Yes, sir. Perfect.
All right, with that, everybody good that transportation staff will go back and take a look at making some revisions that may be more palatable based on the discussion we've had here this evening. Is that fair?
And if it's another 6 months before you get here, we understand.
Councilmember Beeson? Yes.
I have second addition of feedback. There is one small section related to EPW in the opposite direction that is not applied. You have EPW addressed in the private to public, but you do not have EPW addressed, I'm sorry, I think public to private, but not, this is very difficult for me. I am sorry. The private to public is not addressed. So if you could work with EPW as well to be able to address the sanitary sewer, the utilities and the other conditions to make sure those are included in the reversal as well.
God, we would love that.
Just
It
throwing
would
that
be
out.
like a dream come true. If somebody says, hey, I want to take the public and turn it to private on the storm.
Well, just because it is addressed in your opposite direction conversion, the private to public conversion, it is included, but it is not addressed in the other way around. So making sure that if this, then that.
And we discussed it, but we'll make sure we mention it clearly.
All right, thank you. I believe, yes, Councilmember Morthland.
That was my only recommendation, is looking at this from the stormwater scenario. If you have someone that has gone from public to private and over 10 to 15 years of,
You guys know Sharon is in the back laughing at us right now.
not that this would come up, but for non-maintenance over that time period and the consistent water flow that would get up underneath the catch basins and wash out, addressing that when we come back around.
We'll make sure it's clear.
All right, thank you. We've got several takeaways, and we'll make some revisions here and bring this back at the appropriate time in the future. All right, item number 4, consideration to make minor updates to the City of Roswell's traffic calming program policy to clarify steps needed for residents to request traffic calming measures in their neighborhood streets. Mr. Littlefield.
Yeah, in this one, we brought the raised element to the traffic calming back about a month and a half, 2 months ago. It's back because of my error, actually, because we had 2 traffic calming policies, and it wasn't really clear which one someone would need based on what they asked for. And when it was on our website, and no one could really figure out which one they needed to follow. And one was for simple items such as speed feedback signs, in-street assemblies, things of that nature, things that should be easy for an HOA to actually get. Just come to us, they want to pay for it, they put it in, we go look at it, make sure they get an 811 call where the sign's going, and it should be real easy. But inadvertently, when we combined both policies together, it read like it was putting the more stringent criteria from things such as like a bulb out or a raised element to your traffic calming to these simple items. So we just made these notes, like under 3.1. Note that the requirement in section 3.1 do not pertain to the traffic calming measures described in section 5.1 of this document. 5.1 is the more stringent things that you actually need to look at from an engineering standpoint to make sure they're safe to put in. The speed feedback signs, if anybody wants them, they should be able to just put them in. As long as it's in a safe location, it doesn't create a sight distance issue of some sort. So, but we would, of course, look at that, but they shouldn't need to get an 85th percentile speed or anything like that. It should just be, you can put one up. This existing speed limit sign, we just put a feedback sign underneath it. I think that was the biggest change. Under section 5, 5.1, that's actually something that we need to fix before it goes to council. Because that only roads for posted speed limits under 25 miles per hour or less only pertains to the in-street assemblies. And those are the ones that are placed in the middle of the road. And that's just for a safety standpoint for cars or people standing next to them if a car hits one and they go flying. But all the other devices such as driver feedback radar signs, the RRFBs, those can be on higher speed roads. We have them on higher speed roads. They're safe, and they are effective to a degree. And so we want people to be able to put them in easily if they so choose as an HOA. And those are the changes. And like I said, the changes are based on the fact that I took two policies and made them one policy in an attempt to make it easier for homeowners to actually get some of these devices implemented.
All right, thank you, Mr. Littlefield. Mayor Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to make sure I have clarity, by the way, I love on your in-street pedestrian warning assembly signs. If you see your illustration on page 9, packet page 29,
Yes.
do you see that illustration? To the left of the actual picture? See the three signs say Windsor Forest at the top? One shows a pedestrian, one shows a golf cart, and one shows a bicycle? I've never seen those. Those are really cool.
Yeah, they're out there.
Do we have them?
They're good target
Well, I hear you. Every time we get them put up, they get destroyed.
We just put one on Canton Street down close to Woodstock.
Yeah?
Put on Woodstock too.
Yeah, and Woodstock for that matter.
Is it still standing?
It actually
Yes,
is. I was
it actually
surprised.
is.
I went by
I look for
there
it every
last
day.
week and it is still standing. It's been up for over a month now.
The ones I always see say state law, stop for pedestrian within crosswalk, right? Basically, that's usually what they say. You put three illustrations here that are pretty cool. The Windsor Forest with a pedestrian below it, the Windsor Forest with a golf cart, and the Windsor Forest with a bike.
And those are all just possibilities. There's
Yeah, those are cool.
several different.
Oh, there they are, right there.
Yes.
Those are cool. But in relation to this on 5.1, it is only applicable to the in-street pedestrian warning assembly, is that correct?
No, that's the 25 miles per hour or less, and that's because of safety, basically. If they get hit, they go flying.
Yeah, but that's only applicable to what?
Only applicable, and we're gonna make that clear, but only applicable to the in-street pedestrian warning signs. As you can see, we have a
Period.
35 mile per hour.
Right, yeah.
there. So
So-
that one's
so just that one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure. Perfect. Thank you, sir.
RFBs, which are for crosswalks, mid-block crosswalks, those would all be speeds higher than 25, of course. VHBs, the flashing stop signs, speed limits over
Perfect.
25.
No, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, further questions or comment? Yes, Councilmember Beeson?
Two questions. Page 32, looking at speed reduction pavement markings. This one illustrates the clearly delineated protected bike lane, but it's only using the deflectors for the bike lane. do we have an option to use physical curbs for protected bike lanes within residential areas?
We have the room. I mean, pretty much anything that would be desired.
Because I don't see language that would incorporate that in a residential area. And so I guess to be more detailed in what I'm trying to describe, so it would look similar to this picture. Instead of using those plastic deflectors, which I could easily take out with my minivan, it would instead be a raised curb to actually protect that bike lane or the pedestrian area that's still on the physical street itself.
You can change it to include that.
Yeah, just call it a barrier separated bike lane.
Barriers.
I like barrier separated instead, just because those plastic deflectors, as David so lovingly put it, are target practice sometimes. My other question, page 24, section 3.2, second bullet point, it's, one of the requirements is any of the following are found during a traffic study. It says the number of speed-related crashes or 3 or more within the 12-month period. Can we just make that the number, more than 3 crashes within a 12-month period? Does it have to be related to speed? I mean, clearly you're having an unsafe street if you have 3 accidents in a year.
I didn't see what you're.
I'm sorry, section 3.2, traffic problem definition. A traffic problem on a residential local street is considered to exist if any of the following are found during the traffic study. Second bullet point says the number of speed-related crashes is 3 or more within the last 12-month period. Can we just make it if there's any more than 3 crashes in a 12-month period?
Yeah.
The understanding is even if speed isn't the culprit, there's clearly unsafe conditions that need to be addressed.
Yeah, we can certainly change that.
Those are my only 2 questions.
All right. Further questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we'll entertain a motion on this item. Motion, Councilmember Johnson. Second, Councilmember Morthland. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Item number 5, consideration to approve revisions to the City of Roswell standard construction specifications. And I believe that's the item that you received a 1-page handout with the proposed changes in red. Is that correct? Okay, all right, gotcha. All right. That page in conjunction with the other pages, all right?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
The wording didn't change, there was just the change of the font color to highlight the change that got missed earlier.
Okay, all right. So that page insert then. Okay,
That's
thank you.
So briefly, we have our standard construction specifications manual. It's a document that we post on our city website that contractors use. We require them to put a lot of those specifications into their applications to us, so we can look at them during the plan review process to make sure they're building or constructing, future assets in the right of way to our specs. That way, when the city takes them over, we don't get a deficient product. So what staff do, we look at these requirements periodically based on new federal or state guidance, or basically just best practices or things we've observed in the field or things we need to clarify based on past experiences. So we periodically come back and look at these and update these every couple of years. And this not only covers transportation, but this document also has EPW and public works specifications as well. I'm not going to highlight all the changes. We outlined them in red text in your packet, but I did want to highlight a couple things that just had a slight tinge of a policy. We just want to make sure they were on your radar and you were comfortable with them before we move forward with this. Now, a lot of these changes you'll see here are just minimal changes to widths or depths of concrete, but there are a couple of things we just wanted to give a little more latitude to transportation staff. One of them was to make sure the construction materials of driveways inside the right-of-way was concrete. One of the exceptions would be if it's in the historic district, that generally requires, granite curbs or brick paver sidewalks. That's pretty common. But we have been inundated with a few requests over the past year for decorative driveways. That's that aesthetic texture. The code currently says it has to be a hardened surface, but we want to make sure that these driveways, here's a photo of one off Coleman Road. We want to make sure they're ADA compliant for wheelchairs or any handicapped individuals. But the main thing is, if someone puts one of these in, we want to make sure we're not on the hook to repair them. So for example, we have to do an improvement to the road or a water line gets installed or there's some utility thing. We want to make sure the city's does not have to replace it as is. We would simply replace it with concrete. So we want to make sure that the Transportation Department can approve these as long as they meet our standards. So that was one thing we just wanted to put out there. Another thing is we redid all of our sidewalk and driveway apron specifications. There's been a lot of confusion on them. We've been involved with a request from Federal Highway to correct some of our APA cross slope issues. We had a complaint a year and a half ago that we're about to close out. So we've been trying to improve the process and give our developers better drawings to make sure that the cross slope meets ADA standards. One of the things we added here in the insert on the right is we did not have a spec for a multi-use trail. I highlighted in yellow there on the screen, the 8-foot minimum. We did not have that in there before, with a lot of multi-use trails going in on various roads like Woodstock and possibly Pine Grove in the future, or Riverside. We wanted to make sure the drawings were out there for our contractors, homeowners, and basically our customers to adhere to and make to streamline the process. So we think this is definitely a positive development. Another instance we wanted to just draw to your attention was the code requires sidewalks be installed on both sides of the road, like in new subdivisions or new streets. However, we had gotten into some debate on whether sidewalks need to go around all parking lots or fire turnarounds. We don't think that's necessary in some instances, just because the way people walk, they're not going to go. I'll actually have an illustration here. So here's an example that we had in the field, just to show you on the map. Here's the fire turnaround. We weren't sure if you wanted to have the sidewalk encompass the fire turnaround. Now, a pedestrian would not use it. They would just cross the road. So we also have a couple instances where we have parking spaces, near a mail kiosk. So if there's some logical use, we would definitely incorporate that, but we didn't think it was required for the fire turnaround or any fire access road. So we added that the transportation director may be able to waive those if it's not really relevant. It's just kind of a common sense approach. And then lastly, this is another change that came up in the past 2 years that we wanted to correct. There is something in our specifications that basically says if a driveway is within 250 feet of a signalized intersection, it has to be right in and right out. The debate came up with, how do you measure that 250 feet? Is it the blue line here on the graphic from the center line of the driveway to the center line of the intersection? That can vary greatly, because if you know some of our intersections out on Highway 92 or on Holcomb Bridge Road, they're very large intersections. I mean, some of them are measured in acres, not square feet. So based on the size of those intersections, that can really make that 250 feet a little bit different for this kind of measurement. So we're recommending using the red arrow, measuring it from the radius return. That's basically where the straight part of the curb stops. And we would definitely take that into account if there is a curvature in the road, but it's usually fairly straight. And we would just basically make that 250 feet, which would give us a lot more room for when we have signalized intersections. And the reason that is if you have a red light, you're going to have cars queued up. And I've illustrated that here. The black cars will back up. And if you have a car turning out, if they're going to go left, they're not going to be able to see that red vehicle approaching. Here's kind of the sight distance of what that would look like. So we wanted to put this in here to clarify not only the measurement, but also give the transportation director the option to extend that distance if it's warranted for safety reasons. So we think that's a positive development. So I just wanted to bring those 3 things to your attention, and I'll be glad to answer any questions on the specifications modifications.
Can you go back to that one slide? Just, has someone measured East Village yet?
East Village from Champions Green or the side streets?
Champions Green from the signalized intersection to that turn by the old Taco Mac?
I believe so. On Champions Green, the public roadway, yes.
Does it meet this, do you know?
Yes, I believe it does.
That is a very bad intersection.
Yeah.
Councilmember Beeson?
Also, I think Champions Green, you're talking about where the roundabout is?
Yeah, but
Yeah, the roundabout wouldn't apply to this because it has the roundabout function
I'm talking about on Holcomb Bridge.
on Holcomb Bridge. Yeah, but I believe those driveways are right in, right out, if I'm not mistaken, already on Holcomb Bridge. It might be the one by the Taco Mac.
It's one by the Taco Mac, and of course, the Champions Green comes to a signalized, and there's a
Yeah.
curve. It is a very tough intersection, and
Yeah. But I believe that's been there for a long time.
And yeah, I mean, we should look at that as right out, right in, right out only, in my view, but.
All right. Take a look at that, and Councilmember Beeson?
Reading on this slide, I understand from the illustration what you're trying to accomplish, but in the language itself, you're not designating that illustration. So it would still be applicable with the language if you reverse the proposed new driveway and the existing signalized intersection in the picture. So say the light were actually on the left-hand side and your proposed new driveway is on the right-hand side. It's not stipulated in your language that that doesn't still have to be a right-hand turn, even though the same safety conditions don't apply. Because that light could back up. Say if the light were on the left-hand side of this image and it accumulates the same way that you're showing, I theoretically can still turn left from the right-hand side into that intersection without it posing a sight line distance issue. So just saying that the language needs to be straightened out.
I can't follow.
Okay, so looking at the language itself, if the closest intersection is or likely to be signalized, then traffic movements to and from any driveway within 250 feet of an intersection, as measured from the radius return and the intersection radius return with a collector or an arterial should be limited to right turns only. It doesn't designate that if the signal is to the right-hand side, that you cannot turn, that it have to be right-hand turn only.
In other
So.
words, if the blue car faced the light.
Exactly.
It wouldn't have a trouble,
It wouldn't have the problem, correct. What Alan is saying, so say let's invert that picture, put the signal on the left-hand driveway and put the blue car on the right-hand driveway. That blue car would not be allowed to turn left because it's a right-hand turn only based off this language, even though there's not a safety issue if the signal is on the left-hand side. Just saying your language needs to be clarified slightly.
Your stacking problem would go away.
Correct. But your language still prevents that car from turning left, even though it doesn't present an issue. I'll use an intersection I traverse quite often that has this problem and is still an issue. If you're turning out of Brookfield Country Club and you're trying to turn left into a signalized intersection, which is King Road and Hardscrabble Road, theoretically, off this language, you would say, okay, because it's within 250 feet of that intersection, I'd have to do a right-hand turn only. But the cars are stacking on the further side of the road. I don't have a sightline issue.
So basically, you're saying if this was a four-way intersection, it'd be if the blue car was over here trying to go left?
No, just move your light in your blue car.
Just move that light to the left side, facing the blue car, and the stacking problem.
Would be on the other lane, the westbound lane.
The westbound side. So yeah, there's no sightline preventions. So you would be preventing right-hand turns in areas, I'm sorry, you would be forcing right-hand turn only in areas where it's not a necessity. So the language just needs to be straightened out that if, I guess in this case, if the signalized intersection is to the right, it would have to be right-hand turn only, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that, sorry for me. I have some language issues today, and I apologize. My second question, page 21, packet page 64, very last paragraph on the page. Utility poles and guide wires must not block any portion of sidewalk or multi-use trail. The developer must remove any obstacles prior to either the certificate of occupancy being issued or the bond being released. Love that. Very into it. Can think of very specific examples throughout the city where that is not, or where it's very applicable. Could we also add fire hydrants to that list of items that would need to be relocated if they block the full usability of the sidewalk?
Yes, we can.
That's it on my, thank you. And one more addition, Councilmember Morthland, utility boxes as well.
Councilmember Morthland?
Let him catch up here.
Okay.
Thank you, Alan.
Since we're talking about this picture where the car is turning right, this is a right turn only scenario. Do we require for any of these new proposed driveways, do we require them to put a pork chop in there, or are they okay to put paint? So we are required to put pork chop. Okay, that was what I wanted to make sure we were square. As long as it's not paint, because people run over paint and make a left-hand turn.
We want something raised.
Okay.
Councilmember Hull?
Could we go back to the aesthetic driveway, the stamped driveway picture? So in this scenario, if the city were to do some sidewalk repair and end up tearing up some of that driveway, any portion of it, the city would not be required, or we would just put regular concrete back, or what would happen?
Yes, because it's our right of way. We're not going to invest in finding that exact match texture. That's
So
very
so the homeowner would be responsible, or we'd contact the homeowner and basically say, we're doing this work, just a heads up, you're going to have to put your stamped part of the driveway back.
Yes, if they're going to install it, they'd be putting it at their own risk.
At the, okay,
Anything
so
to
it's
put
a,
right away,
Yes,
including plants, right?
Right away?
yes. Yeah, plants, lawn, irrigation systems.
Good,
Thank you.
good, yes.
I just want to make sure that's clear so that there aren't any homeowner surprises.
Okay. All right.
It's hard to meet ADA requirements with the snow, because of the patterns. You can't get that 2% and then get the rollover. It's very difficult.
All right, any further questions or comments regarding this item? Not, there were some takeaways here as well, but we'll entertain a motion. Motion by Councilmember Johnson. I'm sorry. Motion by Councilmember Johnson. Is there a second on this one? Okay, motion by Councilmember Johnson.
I thought we were going to clean this up, while we were voting.
Okay. Yeah, let's go back. Want to make sure, Councilmember Johnson, what is the essence of your motion?
Motion is to approve the construction standard under
With the change.
Rookie. Approve revisions to the city's of Roswell standard construction specifications with the added modifications
With the-
discussed here tonight.
All right, okay. To approve with added modifications that were discussed. Is that good? Okay. And we'll entertain a second. Second by Councilmember Hills. Any further discussion? I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. Yes. All right. So we have a motion by Councilmember Johnson with the noted modifications, second by Councilmember Hills. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor? All right, okay, thank you. All right, and then item number 6, consideration of a resolution to submit a local road assistance administration project list for FY 2024 to the Georgia Department of Transportation and to accept the local road assistance funds for $1,234,007.25 from the Georgia Department of Transportation, and approval of budget amendment BA 33542200-04-08-24 to set up the funding. Mr. Cox?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we got some good news. There's been a state budget surplus, and they've been allocating how a lot of that extra revenue will be administered. One of the things is going to the Department of Transportation to go out to all of the city and county governments using a formula-based system based on your road mileage and your population. It's basically very similar to the LMIG program, which is an annual grant we get every year for our resurfacing program. Normally, the LMIG program requires a 30% match. The good news about this extra surplus funding, the LRA, it's a one-time payment, but it does not require a local match. All we have to do is apply for it, and we will get the funds of about $1.2 million. Traditionally, we've used the LMIG funds for our road resurfacing, so that's one thing we wanted to recommend to the mayor and council. If we can get this signed by the mayor or city administrator, submit it to GDOT, we could likely have those new funds in our hands likely before early part of the summer. And we recommend using the LRA funds to supplement the road resurfacing, which the mayor and council approved that road list just last month, about 45 days ago. So once we get that, we can apply for those funds, and we, as the chairman mentioned, we would just process the budget amendment, and we could include that in our procurement process and get some work done.
Mayor Wilson?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to advertise to the council at this time, this is a great reason, and Councilmember Johnson articulated it really well earlier in a meeting. of why our budget process, our budget year should be changed from July 1st to January 1st, and the particular issue of how this would be a benefit to the city, both from a financial perspective and a planning perspective and an execution perspective, is budgeting for paving roads. And I thought David did a great job of kind of, we talked about this, so I'm advocating to the council here, kind of just off the hook, off the cuff, and hope to talk with everybody as much as anyone wants to talk about, but like to advocate, and I think it has the support of the senior staff as well, that it would make a lot of sense for the city of Roswell's calendar year, fiscal year, to match up with the calendar year beginning January 1st. And when I see paving up there, just immediately made me think of it, because David brought it up earlier. This is a perfect example where the city would make, would help its planning, help its execution, and would help its finances. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further? Yes, Councilmember Morthland.
Since this is a one-time influx, is there any kind of requirement for us to have this money spent by a certain expiration date, or just open-ended?
No, it's similar to the LMIG. You can roll it over
Got it.
for eligible projects.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Further questions or comments? Councilmember Hall.
Informational, how many miles will we get, or how many feet will we get out of 1.2 million roughly?
Depends how wide the road is.
Depending on the road, it's a surface area, I mean, wild guess.
Wild
Depends
guess.
on if there's signals, with signal loops, things like that, striping versus no striping in a subdivision. Roughly 5-6 miles.
That's good. Great, thank you.
It is.
Yeah, if it's a subdivision, you can go a lot further. It's one of our collective streets that takes a lot of time, and a lot of money.
Thank you.
All right,
It'll be significant.
all right, thank you. Any further questions or comments regarding this item? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion. Motion by Councilmember Johnson, second by Councilmember Sells. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. And that does conclude the agenda for the March 26, 2024 Community Development and Transportation Committee meeting. We will entertain a motion of adjournment. Motion by Councilmember Morthland, second by Councilmember Johnson. All in favor? All right, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Great day in Roswell, great news. Excited to move forward.